Hello, welcome to Two Left Feet.
Hello again, welcome back.
Today we're going to talk about talent.
Yes, but first, like and subscribe.
I'm Ellie.
I'm Lewis.
Welcome. There's a lot just want to say this, there's a lot that's come up in this talent video. We've kind of been trying to work out over the last couple of days how to fit it all in. And it's been it's thrown us into so many different directions. Maybe we'll come back to some things in future videos, or there might be things that we've just touched upon that we actually want to expand upon.
It's because
later.
Talent is so meaningless.
Yeah.
That it's left us with such a loose container for the video,
yeah.
for the subject of the video.
Yeah.
It's like, got holes in it, it's baggy.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck you, talent.
Fuck talent. What do you think of when you think of talent?
Yes, very good question. Very ready to answer it. I always think of something which is almost supernatural that someone has, which is distinct from what other people have. Everyone's got their innate talents. No one can necessarily learn to do something as well as someone else who is very talented at that thing. So that's what the talent is in my mind. It's exclusive talents.
Does everyone have a talent?
No.
Oh.
That's the thing.
Oh no. Not even
There's
weird
kind of
talents.
Yeah, probably, but then that's the thing, isn't it? That's subjective as to whether you call that a talent or not. This thing, stuff like this.
Wow, talent.
Well, yeah, exactly, but yeah. So I guess there's a thing, isn't there? Value systems for talents of the general society's valuing a hierarchy of talents.
So what's a classic talent?
Oh, classic talent would be being able to cook. A classic talent would be this is a good example from my dissertation, which I have lost. Mozart.
Mozart is a talent. No, he's a person who had a talent.
He's a person who people consider broadly to have been a talented musician.
He was sort of broadly talented, jack of all trades. Yeah.
No, the considering is broad.
And then what's a more unusual talent?
Well, I'll show you again.
That's fascinating.
It's quite usual around these parts, but not everywhere. So that's conceptually how I think of talent, and which makes me not a big fan of the idea. What do you think of when you think of talent?
I would agree. Largely, it's the same thing that comes to mind. The things that I think of are singing, kicking a leg high, being able to pirouette, or being able to balance. Maybe accomplish things with your hands, like playing the piano and singing at the same time, and making that come across like that's very easy to do. People say that you have a talented, an ice skater. Who can do all the tricks but also looks graceful. There's something about charm and ease that are related to talent, where you don't think about the fact that this person might be trying really hard to do something, but somehow it comes naturally to them. This is my idea.
The comes naturally thing, yes.
Yeah. The occupations you think of when you think about talent, there are also things that people don't often think of as very typical jobs.
Yes.
Like being a musician, or being a dancer, or being an ice skater or something.
Yes.
Ice skating is real front of my mind for talent.
Yeah, I guess it's also just thinking back to childhood images of people who would perform things. That was not in my head as a job. I just thought that there was these people who could do amazing showy things, who would just kind of float around until they were called upon, and then they would do them. and they were kind of ethereal beings. I remember thinking, watching Britain's Got Talent with my girlfriend in high school. She was all into Andrew Lloyd Webber and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I became very aware that there was only like 2 or 3 things which people would do on that show.
Yeah.
It's like there was X Factor and that was all singing.
Yeah.
And then there was Britain's Got Talent, which was mostly singing.
Yeah.
And like some hip hop dancing, which obviously, I mean, this is like over 10 years ago, so
the program's changed.
It has developed. But I remember thinking things like computer programmers or writers are also considered to have talent, but we aren't seeing that on this. They can't be done on the stage like that.
No, that'd be really good. Like just long form
Oh,
writing.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Like people just really getting down to their poetry.
Or like they've got like kind of like the graphs of their story arcs and like all their characters on a on a kind of what do you call them, flip chart, and there's the spider diagrams, and they're like, well, so I've got I've got all this. It's
an option. We could work with it. I could probably go from here quite easily, but we could also do another version.
Yeah,
it's really like
if I get some funding, I can take this to the next level.
It's too many variables. You can't. I think that's something in this classic talent show. There's not variables to what is going to happen in this act.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking when you were talking about the graphs, I was like, oh, you could also have like a sort of scientist, like, or a mathematician.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then, if you had someone solving maths questions really quickly, I think that could fit onto Britain's Got Talent really easily. It's like doing
that's a trick.
A cube thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rubik's Cube. Yeah, that is that, isn't it? That's the Britain's Got Talent version of maths talent.
Because there's right and wrong, and it can be done in a measured time. So we have this idea of talent, which is maybe like our very instinctive, like reduced version of what that is. It's not really necessarily what we're here to talk about, but it is important to recognise that that's like
the immediate reaction.
Yeah, and that's pretty prevalent, let's say, in society, that idea of what talent is.
Yeah.
So what is talent in the dance context for you, and how does it exist, and maybe why have we chosen to talk about this word?
I think it relates to proclivities or things that you're kind of predisposed to liking to do or doing, and if you're kind of leaning towards flexibility, being interested in that sensation, enjoying that, then you're more likely to be called talented, I think, if that works out for you. You know, like if you like to do it, you'll do it more, and then you will the results will be there.
And then that's the circle of like that perpetuates itself, isn't it? Because if you do it more, then you get better at it. Then when you get rewarded for being better, and it's like a rewards circle.
And that's not to say everyone who enjoys that gets better to a degree that they're celebrated.
That's true.
But still, let's just kind of go with it anyway.
But let's say that generally, if someone works at something, they're likely to get better at it.
It's true, 10,000 hours, that's what they say.
Oh my god, yeah. Nightmare.
You might be wondering, what is the 10,000 hour rule?
Coined by Maxwell Gladwell. No, what's his name? Maxwell Gladwell. Maximal
Manimal.
What's his name?
Maximal Mammal Manimal. Malcolm Gladwell.
Thank you. A writer.
Canadian journalist, they call him on Google.
He wrote a book saying if you want to become a world leader of something, you have to practice it for 10,000 hours. Proving this by saying that the Beatles did it, and also Bill Gates did it. He had hours to himself just on computers.
He was just practicing computers.
Yeah, and therefore he became like the world leader in it.
Then you get to be a billionaire.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's all about the money. And the Beatles are supposedly the best band in the world.
Yes, that's what this article about Gladwell's book said. It's like they managed to become the best band in the world because they played for 10,000 hours in Hamburg.
But just the fact that the idea that the Beatles might be the best band in the world is just like so gross.
Whoa. The Beatles are the best band in the world. Like, no, it's not even just about their ability to play music or write songs. It's about the character. It's about the story. It's about the hairstyles. It's the mythos.
The ether.
It's the ether that they had.
Okay, so
it's absolute bollocks.
bollocks bullshit.
The whole 10,000 hours thing, not the Beatles.
So we're not just saying this ourselves, but the person who wrote the study that Gladwell based this theory on says it's also bullshit.
You know, this is what happens when people want to make some money off someone else's scientific study. So it appears to me, allegedly, I'm alleging this, that Gladwell wanted to make some money. I haven't really looked in that much. I'm just saying, allegedly, via my allegings, he wanted to make some money. He found a study which says something like you have to spend an amount of time to become an expert at something. And he goes, right, okay, how many hours is it? The guy, Ericsson, says, well, some violinists played for 7,400 hours up to the age of 20, and they became something which I was classifying as expert. And Malcolm goes, all right, everything. To be an expert at anything, you need to do, not 7,400, but it's about 10,000, isn't it? 10,000 hours then.
Bit more catchy.
Bit more catchy.
Round it up.
It's got a good ring to it. So
You're not going to round it down, are you?
you become an expert at anything if you spend 10,000 hours practicing it.
And then we say, well, Ericsson says, that is a provocative generalization, quote,
Yeah.
which I like that
It's
quote.
very good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very succinct.
That's
And I say, quote,
Yeah.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Gladwell, what kind of practice are you doing it with a teacher who's giving you tips? Or are you just at home fiddling around?
Just fiddling over and over again with your computers, just fiddling.
Do you have the right, gear and support? Are you just repeating the same thing over and over again? Or are you changing it each time? There's also stuff like, okay, if you're talking about success, which is what Gladwell was talking about, which is not just skill level, but like becoming dominant in your field. So if you have a band like Sex Pistols where so-and-so, who's the guy in the
Sid
quote?
Vicious.
Not very good at playing bass, apparently. I don't know anything about these things. Took the world by storm. That doesn't, obviously things don't just depend on whether you can, do the skill. It's also about, what you do with it.
Thundercat, as a bass player, is very different to Sid Vicious as a bass player. And I wouldn't say they have the same level of success.
Or money.
It's kind of really hard to measure. But, I mean, it's kind of, they're kind of adjacent. They're both famous bass players.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with that skill. So, it feels more like Sid Vicious was hitting on a cultural moment, which you can't practice for 10,000 hours.
No.
Hitting on cultural moments. I don't know. And he probably, I don't know if he was even intentionally doing that. It sounds more like, these punks were just in the right place at the right time.
It's totally context. It's not something that you can definitively hold in your hand and say that someone has or hasn't any of these things, because it totally is dependent on whether you have some kind of inclination of being good at it or liking it, which comes maybe quite easily to you, or whether you've been provided the opportunity to do that thing. And it has to be this sweet, and the world happens to be needing someone like you to come along right now. So it's these sweet combinations of success, which then get attributed to just one measurable thing called talent, or one measurable thing called practice.
Yeah.
And it's all a load of bollocks.
Yeah, the practice thing is really weird, isn't it? Practicing what, under what conditions. This is the kind of the catchy way of saying it. It's just that not all practice is made equal. If you live in a very poor family and your parents are very stressed and you're trying to learn the violin, somehow you got your hands on a violin, I don't know, you're not going to be able to focus as easily. You'll probably be hungry, you'll probably be at the behest of certain people asking you to do things.
Stop making so much sound on that screechy violin.
Yeah. Shut up!
It's not like practice isn't a thing that you can do that can make you better or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't need to say that caveat, but like absolutely practice can be a wonderful thing. Like it's just different in different contexts to like if you're, you know, Deborah Hay and you're like, actually I am going to practice performing every day for years, and that means going to the studio on my own and like experimenting with myself and my body and how it works, and that's of course that's a practice, and of course that gets her somewhere, but that doesn't make her a millionaire. Like
yeah.
So like it's just unrelated. Like success and money and all these things are all so separate.
But this
that it's just pointless to make these rules up.
This is what Malcolm Gladwell was hitting upon in terms of hitting on a cultural moment. He's hitting on the fact that everybody wants to get rich and feel lots of self-esteem and be able to display their talents, and they want to feel like that's just around the corner or just around a corner, which might be quite far away, 10,000 hours, but still that corner can be turned. It's kind of this hope that who wants to be a millionaire? Oh, me. So then I'll just spend 10,000 hours playing this bleeding violin and I'll get there. And it's putting practice in the context of the goal, which is it's probably one of the worst ways to practice anything, is to think about a fixed goal that you want to achieve, I think. I mean, I feel this way because I was brainwashed by my Alexander technique teacher at uni against the idea of what they call in that community end gaining, where you get into the mentality that you think about the end point that you want to gain, and then you just get so distracted by that you don't actually attend to the practice that you're doing. You don't ask pertinent questions because you're so fixed on everything you do has to shoot you towards this goal-oriented thinking. I think some self-help books will call it.
Yeah.
It takes you out of the moment that you're living in or practicing in, so you can't actually respond to your situation that you're in.
Talent for me is always a bit of a pointless word, because I think it's something that's so easily kind of argued away. So it's a bit kind of random, like why you might be good at something, either because you want to do it or because you just happen to have gone to the right training.
Yeah. Because of the situation that you were born into, perhaps.
Yeah, so then it makes me think of like the whole idea of a meritocracy, this false idea that we live in a meritocracy where hard work or talent are rewarded fairly. We can insert here meritocracy.
According to Wikipedia, meritocracy is a political system in which economic goods and/or political power are vested in individual people on the basis of talent, effort, and achievement, rather than wealth or social class. Advancement in such a system is based on performance and measured through examination or demonstrated achievement. Extra little tidbit from Wikipedia, though the concept of a meritocracy has existed since the dawn of capitalism, the term itself was only coined in 1958 by a sociologist called Michael Dunlop Young in a satirical essay called The Rise of the Meritocracy, which was basically a dystopian future UK, which sounds very interesting. More tidbits about searching meritocracy online. The top search results, other than dictionary definitions, are just a bunch of articles asking why it's not working and why it makes everyone miserable and that it's a false promise. Yeah.
So me and Ellie watched a great video from that posh philosopher Alain de Botton on his trash channel, The
Lewis-
School of Life.
Lewis does a good impression.
Meritocracy is one of the things that we'll be talking about today in our special video, which I recorded at my posh house with my wife, who's in our sex dungeon. That's what I think Alain de Botton is. I think he's a sex fiend of most deviant proportions.
And you've
He
deduced
often-
this from carefully studying a lot of his videos over
Yes,
the years.
I've watched lots of the School of Life videos, reductive as they are. They often I don't know. I get hooked.
They helped you through.
They helped me through some more difficult times. No, it is good. It's a great thing that he's doing. We often feel that our emotions go unnoticed by others in our families. So there's that kind of thing. Yeah, but
You might be unemployed. You might be sad. You
I
might
might
have a
be-
terrible life.
I might be
I
born into
don't.
wealth.
I'm fine.
But the main thing for the sexual deviancy stuff is that he always says stuff about we might have a sexual preference that our partners don't quite agree with. So we need to find a way to talk to them about that in the most loving and open way possible. So he's kind of like, and then maybe the picture on the animation will be someone with a whip or something, or someone with leather boots, and it's like he's built this whole channel to get his wife to do stuff that he wants
That's so
to do.
sad. That's awful.
I don't know that that's true.
It's tragic.
I would. That's my way of making me feel better about his quite sincerely,
Yeah.
moralistically
And-
good
Yeah.
influence on the world. I like to make fun of him.
And stop yourself getting jealous of the fact that he might have a better sex life than you.
Exactly. Yeah. You never get the whip out when I want you to.
All right. We'll talk about this later. So, meritocracy, it's the American dream.
Well,
It's the ideal society.
it is a development out of feudalism, right?
Right. Feudalism is a word which very broadly describes how society worked economically in medieval Europe before our current market society, aka capitalism. Karl Marx defined feudalism as a classed society led by the ruling aristocracy, who owned the land and controlled the people who lived on it. The system was based on the exploitation of the peasants, or serfs, who were bound to the farmlands. Serfs had no rights and could not leave the land, but they would be allowed a portion of the land to provide food for themselves. And in theory, they would be protected by the landowner's military from any outside force. Marx said, "In pre-capitalist systems, it was obvious that most people did not control their own destiny. Under feudalism, for instance, serfs had to work for their lords. Capitalism seems different because people are, in theory, free to work for themselves or for others as they choose. Yet most workers have as little control over their lives as feudal serfs."
So, it's a great idea in that it's a step away from like outright just going, hey,
Yeah.
you were born in the mud, that's where you're going to stay.
You
Because
can't vote.
that's what your whole
Yeah.
existence is about. It's about
Yeah.
mud and mud products.
Yeah.
Mud byproducts.
And I was born in a palace, so...
So you're a
That's
palace
where I
person.
belong.
You're a palace
Yeah.
person, and that's your God-given right to be a
Yeah.
palace person.
Yeah.
Have your bum wiped for you.
Ooh, lovely.
But the meritocracy goes, you can whittle really well. You're born in the mud,
Yeah.
but you've done really well at whittling,
Yeah.
and you can make all different kinds of like sharp things out of wood. And now you've taken that skill to another level. Now you can make bowls and spoons out of wood and stuff. So now you're free to ascend the ranks of society through this skill that you have developed and your entrepreneurial spirit. And now you're out of the mud. Now you are a palace person, in a way, middle class. The unfortunate things about it, what are they? So there's one thing which is that it's kind of a ruse. It's like not really how things are.
Yeah.
Like
So
all of the residue of feudalism and kind of being born into wealth and all these kinds of things,
they still mean something.
they're still there.
You know, if you're born into a rich family, you still have an advantage.
Yeah.
And if you're born into a poor family, you're very disadvantaged in terms of like how much money you might have in order to live a healthy life.
Another big thing which is really bad about it is that it is now your fault if you don't succeed. There's
Yes.
a moralistic strand to it, which is, well, you had every bleeding opportunity to ascend to the palace, and you just didn't because you were deficient in your drive.
Yeah. You are credited and blamed for
That would be the opposite.
all of your
Discredit.
actions, which of course in a world where not everyone is given the same opportunity or care is not fair, because of course it's not anyone's fault if they end up on the streets, because the system doesn't work in a fair way like that.
So what's kind of crazy is how I feel like the society operates in this like dual identity thing. Like I feel like there's two general things which are opposite here. Generally, people understand that we don't live in a meritocracy, and also generally people think we do live in a meritocracy. Like it's so deeply ingrained, the idea that success and failure are both of your own doing, that even when you can intellectualize like the fact that none of it was your fault, it's still in there.
Yeah, and people use it as it suits them. If someone has ended up in prison, then it's very normal for people to think that they've deserved that.
Yeah.
And that's their fault.
Do the crime, do the time.
And not to ask why that person might have ended up stealing something. We very easily swallow those ideas and we think, well, they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
As we were saying with, the 10,000 hours thing, yeah. Bill Gates must be a good person.
Yeah, he's wicked.
He must be not only talented but also nice.
Yeah.
Because also he gives money to charity. Anyway, obviously you can tell that I don't think he's a nice person. But that's maybe not the subject.
How could he be? How could he possibly be any good as a person, given what we all know about Bill Gates?
Friends with Jeffrey Epstein.
So billionaires, Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos.
People say
People
worked
think
really hard.
he deserves every penny because he's fucking nailed the system, and he's a clever man for it. So he's been rewarded for working it out. So many things wrong with that.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking,
he's talented.
There's an idea that he's cleverer than the person who's earning less. Yeah, exactly. Whether that's proportionally cleverer, because that would be just like impossible, be obscene. Imagine how clever he would be if he was like proportionally.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
He'd be like that. It's like that film you were talking about when you take.
Oh yeah, Limitless.
So like, use 100% of your brain power.
Complete focus. I mean, in South Park, he's portrayed as an enormous. He has an enormous cranium with veins throbbing, as if his.
Jeff Bezos is in South Park.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So he's kind of throbbing and speaks through telekinesis. Telepathy.
So he is this guy that.
So they've kind of gone like, right. So if he does have this much money and he deserves it, then he must be a fucking
amazing,
supernatural.
Yeah.
Telepath.
Meritocracy. So I think this, for me, the most like interesting thing about it is like the kind of emotional thing that comes with it, which is like, you deserve this, or you should be ashamed for failing and you should be happy for succeeding. I think this is the kind of like interesting part of it, which means that it is really hard to kind of escape from.
The shame of not working is super deeply ingrained in, and it's kind of maybe a percentage of what one might feel as like masturbating as a Catholic. You know, like it's not maybe the same.
But I don't know.
But I think for some people it's
It can be
similar
very strong.
magnitude.
Yeah.
And then maybe even stronger, actually,
Well,
to hazard a bold gesture.
the idea of it is seen as a great thing, and then, and I don't think it is a good thing.
Yeah.
And also, the thing, this great thing, is not actually what we have. It's kind of false that it's good, and it's false that it even exists.
Yeah.
It's like a double whammy of
Yeah.
like, this is not a thing.
And this is what Malcolm Gladwell is just like playing on in releasing this like kind of developing this 10,000 hours thing, or just stealing that 10,000 hours thing. It's people's already ingrained idea that if they do more they'll get more, and that if they don't, if they stop for a moment to enjoy themselves, then that's a moral deficiency. And he's just kind of going, yeah, what you think is already, it's right. Yeah, absolutely right. You need to spend 10,000 hours doing whatever to become whatever. Yeah. Here's your own thought packaged into a book is really, it's really good for capitalism, and it's really bad for the welfare state, in that it puts us all into this atomized relationship to each other. We don't have a relationship to each other. We don't have any responsibility to anyone else, because we are so busy trying to make things better for ourselves, and then that coupled with the fact that that's not how the society works means that we are eternally, infinitely chipping away at trying to rise the ranks of the meritocracy, which is impossible to do. So we never stop, never really achieve anything.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like an endless, like you can't rise the ranks. Like I think that's just like the number of people who actually do a Bill Gates. Like generally speaking, society is getting richer, but in terms of like this idea of like leapfrogging kind of into somewhere that you weren't born into,
yeah.
it's very rare. And I think it's like the whole kind of culture that we live in is based on this like carrot dangling, and constantly it's on you for not being able to jump to catch that carrot, when actually like it's like playing the lottery. Like the chances of you actually doing that is just kind of ridiculous. And then we get all hung up about like these stories of sort of people getting into Oxford University from an inner city London school, or we have all these kind of wet dreams about these people that have achieved it, but it doesn't paint a picture of actually what's happening in society, which is that people are still living in poverty. Most people are still living really hard lives, and most people are not getting the healthcare they need.
And all those people who do manage to do that leapfrogging, they tend to choose to reinforce the idea that anyone could do it. Well, I feel like I must have heard Alan Sugar say this. Like, I pulled myself up from my bootstraps, and I got my Amstrad computer out, and I did my 10,000 hours, and I'm a fucking wide boy, like I went round and I did the fucking thing, That's why don't you do it? You can do it. It can be done.
Yeah.
If you just set your mind to it.
Yeah.
But
because that probably. Well, Alan Sugar, like awful guy. Of course they're going to attribute that to some hard work that they've done, because that's human. You don't want to just think that your life is like a random thing.
Yeah.
You want to think that there's some reason behind it and some logic. So of course you attribute it to something that you've done and some hard work that you've put in, and then exactly, it reinforces the narrative.
But they don't think for a minute that there are other factors at play.
Well, it's pulled the ladder up, I suppose.
Exactly, this is it. It's the pulling the ladder up.
Yeah. It's also up on the people that are born into that status. Everyone who went to Eton and then went into Parliament and etc., and has real power. They've got all the ladders up permanently, And then occasionally they'll dip them down.
Yeah.
And the person who climbs up will obediently pull the ladder up behind them and give it back.
Yeah.
You know, like it's also not on these individuals to like change this. I mean, yeah, it's just generally not on individuals to change the system. But it's like a kind of more of a like quilt that operates like inside us that needs to shift and like realise that what we're believing is not really true.
I was just wondering about a new value system where talent is really one of the last things people worry about when auditioning someone. And what we do consider above talent is enthusiasm. This is my
Dream world.
This is my proposed theory.
I like it.
That it could be nice to value enthusiasm over talent.
I think that'd be amazing.
I think it would be good. I've already found a problem with it. That as with everything in the neoliberal capitalist mode, it's got to be quantified, measured, gathered up, rated. So I think enthusiasm is already part of the equation to quite a big degree.
Yeah.
And it's related, unfortunately, to things like, as we discussed with Sue Mayo, body language. And body language is related to culture and background and all of this stuff. So I kind of, I don't know how we're going to measure enthusiasm. I think maybe what it could be is this. If you have an enthusiasm for something, you can do it. If you have a talent for it, you can also do it. But no one of them is more important than the other. If you're enthusiastic and not very good, you can still do it.
Yeah.
If you're talented, not that enthusiastic, but you still want to do it, then you can do it.
But that's really telling, isn't it? Like, what's more important? Like, if you're really good at it, but actually don't really want to do it, then...
You don't have to do it.
Why would you do it?
Yeah. Don't bother.
There's this... I'm reading Ursula Le Guin at the moment.
As am I.
We both are. And what am I reading? The depossessed. The dispossessed. Dispossessed.
The depossessed. That's how we measure. That's how we measure the enthusiasm. If you have a depossessed, darling, you don't have a deep enough zest. I don't know who I was being there.
I like it. It's the talent guy.
Darling, you don't have a deep enough zest.
It's
Lloyd Grossman.
It's Andrew Lloyd Webber. Oh.
Andrew Lloyd Grossman.
Andrew Lloyd Grossman. Yeah. So there's just this lovely little exchange that happens between an academic that's travelled from one planet to another and students in this new planet. And they have very different types of societies. And he's asked to mark the students that he's teaching, and he just doesn't want to do it, and then he gets persuaded to do it. And he's like, okay, everyone, I'm just going to give you all the top mark just because I have to give you a mark. So that's what I'm going to do. And the students come and complain, and they're like, but why would we do the work? Why would we bother putting effort into doing the work if like you're just going to give everyone the top mark? And he's like, well, if you don't want to do the work, don't do the work. And it's just like complete like...
Why would I do something if I couldn't lord my success over others?
Exactly. Oh, the way that we understand receiving affection is always at the expense of other people, because that's kind of how we operate, and we think that creates fairness and equality because it means that everyone is judged and everyone is seen under the eyes of whatever. But whose eyes are we seen under? Of course, we're only seen under the eyes of like very specific powers that have very specific tastes and very specific criteria. And so obviously, like, it's not a fair game.
Yeah.
Because we don't work under the eyes of God. I mean, God doesn't. There isn't that omniscient,
omnipotent.
Thank you, person. But you can kind of get a sense from where all this comes from. I don't know. I'm just thinking now, like maybe all this stuff does come from like governments have, or leaders have often employed that sense of a greater judgment, a force that judges us in order to keep order and peace. And then we all believe in this greater force, even now, you know, in order to keep us in check. And it's not just about moral stuff, but it's also about like crappy trash things like talent.
Talent, yeah.
If you're not challenging what talent is, then you can't. That gets in the way of challenging lots of things. I think dance school is a place where there's a lot of like white, able-bodied, slim people. And there's a lot of that needs to be like challenged. And I think the narrower the idea of what good is in dance, the harder that's going to be. Why don't we have more fat dancers? Why don't we have a less racist dance world? Why? Blah, 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 blah. So it kind of comes down to like who's allowed in.
Do you think the people that come to the audition, it's already happened, the filtering? Or do you think not, and that they're doing the filtering in the audition for the conservatoires?
I think it's already happened, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is why I sometimes get a bit annoyed with the CAT scheme in the UK. Essentially, like, youth companies dance stuff, but you also get helped to apply to dance school if you want to. And I feel like that, I never experienced that, because I'm a bit too old by 1 year. The homogenisation that sort of does to what kind of training is available, or what kind of training is expected of you before you go into one of these schools, or who can access it. Like, you know, these aren't courses that are like available in every town centre. This is like available to people who are close enough to a big city or can get a lift there every Saturday from one of their parents or carers, whatever.
And you audition for a CAT?
Yes, you audition for a CAT, which makes me sad because they're so young, the little babies.
I mean, it's so weird.
I mean, I can see how it comes about.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you've got an audition at one stage, why not prepare people for it? Yeah, I can see how it happens, but I find it, like, really, it homogenises everything.
What do you think about Hafez Shekhter and Akram Khan having said that UK dancers are slow and unmotivated?
Yeah, undisciplined. Yeah.
Just kind of like limp rubbish.
I think they can kiss my ass. That's what I think.
Heard it here first.
Allegedly.
That's a compounding of an already it's almost like the 10,000 hours thing. It's like, yeah, we already knew what the value system in dance was. Thank you, Akram and Hafez. Like, we already knew you had to be like super skinny and like wayfishly thin and also conversely extremely strong. Like,
athletic.
We knew that, and we were making, I don't know, it seems like they were reacting to progress against that. It's the most unradical thing to say about the dance world.
Yeah.
and I guess they just don't want to be radical. They want to keep making money.
Allegedly.
I suppose. This is the only conclusion I can draw from what they said. They want to make money through a model that they know how it works.
Yeah, business model.
A Netflix kind of model.
Oh my god. There's a Netflix programme with Akram Khan happening. We watched the trailer last night. What did he say? I dance.
I don't.
Because I have to.
I don't choose to dance.
Yes.
I have to dance.
It's like, oh God, sorry, do you want to... Like, if you need help, blink. If someone's keeping you hostage...
If someone's got a gun to your head...
And making you dance, then just let us know.
Yeah. Like...
contact us on Instagram or...
Yeah, so he's got his own problem.
Yeah, that's a bit worrying.
Kind of weird that he puts that on other people as well. But...
Maybe Netflix is keeping him hostage.
Yeah, he looked...
They definitely knew where he was because they were filming him.
Well, I think what we may have been witnessing was him in his cage. That could have been some imagery thing that he was doing for his art, but maybe it was actually just real chains.
Could have been art. Could have been hostage situation.
You never know in this climate. I would just like to think that dance could be a choice, and that we wouldn't have to like make it into this thing where you like it's most respected when it's a compulsion.
This actually is really relevant to what we're... Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Are you interrupting, or are you... What are you doing?
What you're talking about, this compulsion thing.
No, it's great. I was finished.
Okay. Because it makes me think of talent again in relation to, like, the genius artist.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, this like, Akram Khan isn't choosing to do anything. He's just driven by this internal force. This
flowing through him.
Fire inside.
Yeah.
And that means that it's kind of like quite a mysterious like phenomenon. Like, this isn't something you can learn. It's
you got
just
it
like,
or you don't.
You got it or you don't.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing more exclusive than that sentiment.
The X Factor.
The X Factor, all of this. And I think that's just so... It's just so problematic in terms of who
especially
gets
in like
to do anything.
Especially in this kind of society where like I think the most broadly felt emotion is like malaise and boredom and lethargy. I feel
and
like
loneliness.
And loneliness and kind of like just kind of like, oh, nothing I do means anything. Like I kind of feel like that's how I've felt for a long time, and I've put that on everyone else. That's maybe just me. In the contemporary capitalist world, so few things mean anything. You can action so little change.
Yeah, we're very powerless.
There's kind of this apathy just kind of sits as an umbrella over everyone, especially me, sits over me. And so I never have felt, maybe for 6 months when I started my degree in dance, I felt driven to that degree.
Mm.
But I like doing it, and that's why I do it. I don't have a fire inside me.
And also, if you were...
Maybe that's my problem.
If you were more outside of dance, maybe you were interested in it, but you didn't have, like, obvious channels to, like, get into it.
Yeah.
If someone was... If the impression that you got from the dance world was, like, you can't do it unless you have, like, the most intense passion. And you're like, oh, maybe I don't...
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have it.
And I think this kind of, like, way of framing the whole thing, it reinforces the idea that you should be grateful to have a career in it. And so then when things start going weird, as they definitely do in dance, it's kind of more likely than in, like, other careers. You know, people start treating you like weird. Then it's hard to... You're so grateful to be where you are.
Yeah.
That you find it an extra hill to climb to criticise working environments, to demand that you're treated properly.
Yeah, like...
Because you've been browbeaten at every stage.
Yes.
Going like, you should be grateful to be where you are.
You're special.
You're working so hard and that's great, but you should push harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all sort of exceptionalism, and it's not just like that you might just deserve to have a job. Or you just deserve to be, like, treated sort of fairly and be paid normally. And it's kind of like...
Not fetishised.
Yeah, fetishised, yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting us. Make sure you like and subscribe. That just helps with the bleeding algorithm. What would you like to say?
Thanks for listening. We've had a great time.
Yeah, we had a really nice time.
I'm Ellie.
Smiles. I'm Lewis.
We are Two Left Feet.
We're Two Left Feet.
Bye-bye.
Bye.